Well, it's not just what they're saying; it's what they believe.
I know.
Yeah.
Like no, and that's a bigger problem because people act on beliefs.
Bro, this is the perfect 2-year-old toddler tantrum mentality. You see that video of the woman falling on the ground and screaming because she was being filmed?
No, but I've heard of it.
Stop filming me! That perfectly exemplifies millennials for the most part. Unfortunately, not all millennials are bad. We seem to be good people. You guys seem to be good people. But what happens is Cuban people are in revolution saying, down with dictatorship, libertad. And then AOC is like, America should give them free stuff.
Yeah,
What?
AOC.
What are you talking about?
No. AOC, you give them your free stuff.
Yeah. There you go.
You do it yourself. Don't do it with
Tesla.
somebody else's stuff. Do it yourself.
I just looked this up. It's July 26, 1953 was the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. It ended in January 1st, 1959. So about a 6-year revolution. That is after 1946, which is when the liberal economic order was established, basically the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower told us about. And it's possible that America was suppressing the hell out of that country.
In what way?
I really don't know. It's a conspiracy. At this point, like Forrest and I were talking about conspiracy theories, and the problem with them is that you want to believe something is true because it gives you a sense of empowerment to be like, I get it. Yeah. So there's something good about me that I understand.
Right.
But like,
so first and foremost, I think people should be responsible for themselves. Like, I believe in charity. I like social programs, but people are responsible for themselves to a great degree. If you don't have food, I may be a good person and help you, but if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for the rest of his life. In the end, if I ultimately say, bro, there's a homeless guy outside and he's like, let me sleep in your house. And I'm like, no, you are causing my suffering. It is your fault. Then activists show up and they're like, the only reason this man is suffering is because Tim Pool won't let him in his house. It's like, no, the dude is responsible for his own shelter, man.
to a point, but the French Revolution.
No, literally period.
Well, but if there's a monarch that's hoarding all the materials so that the people are starving and suffering, it is the monarch's fault.
Why?
Because he's by force keeping them from their stuff or their community has produced.
So can they leave?
It depends. I mean,
Is the king going, you can't even leave?
That actually is a good question because where are you going to go? Are you going to go west?
Right.
You go in the middle of the woods.
Oh yeah. I mean, that works with us.
My point is about Cuba.
Yeah.
Cuba's food problem is Cuba's problem. Cuba's medicine problem is Cuba's problem. There is no obligation from any other country to give to them.
Yes.
And it is not America's fault they don't have stuff.
And in the Cold War, when you side against our enemies, we are not obligated to feed you when your social experiment fails.
Yeah, we had a Cuban missile
same
crisis.
It's the same thing with conservatives. It's like, they're not obligated to... Not conservatives. It's like, okay, let's use a really good example. Like, I mean, a lot of people even rag on Ayn Rand's argument through Atlas Shrugged. It's like, at some point in time, the people providing are going to stop doing it. And then your arguments, your high-handed, moral arguments on the greatest good for the greatest number won't mean a thing.
That's exactly it. Let's say America didn't exist at all. Oh, no, Cuba can't trade to get food from America because there isn't one.
To be entirely fair, American foreign policy has not always had the highest end goals in mind. We see that in the Middle East. I don't know enough about Cuba and the embargo there. I'm just saying that I don't really trust the U.S.'s high-handed assertions of what they're doing anymore.
Bro, these commies, communism comes to being when entitled people think they are owed things and then want to take them from you.
I actually disagree with you on that one.
You don't think that's where communism comes from?
No, I think communism comes from I think communism comes from a base morality of selfishness. I just want it. I don't think it's entitlement. I think entitlement is this thing of there are things owed to me, perhaps because I exist or because of other things. I think when communism is born out of malice. It's I don't like you and I'm better than you. And if I believe this, I'm holier than you.
I mean authoritarianism maybe, but that's what the point of
what's the difference between communism and authoritarianism?
Communism is literally about the ownership by the community, meaning you have people who are like that should be mine.
So it's like Marxism, the abolishment of private property, right? No, it's not.
It's owned by the commons, by the people.
It's not it never functions. It's not the abolishment of private property. It's the abolishment of your property for my benefit. Yeah.
But if you look at the things like, if you look what AOC is saying, you look at what the Squad is talking about and things like that, they're basically saying other people have things that I want and they should be given to me.
Yeah, so we are saying the same thing, but I think it's fundamentally not born out of like an intellectual deficiency. I think it's fundamentally born out of a moral deficiency.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people have never lifted a heavy object in their lives.
Communism ends in mass murder always because it requires absolute, what do you call it? Everyone needs to do it willingly. If one objector exists, then the entire system collapses. Because we all pool our resources. You give all your resources. You give all of yours. Lydia gives all of hers. I give all of mine. But then I go, wait, no, I want to keep this. That act alone, now the only thing that you can do is either dissolve the whole system because it broke, or you have to kill me. It requires
gulag
or steal your stuff. Well, I got really loud there for a second.
I mean, but why does it always fail in that same manner? It's because it requires absolute voluntarism. If you have one person who says no, I don't think so, for good reason or evil, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be a part of your experiment for whatever reason, by their own choice. It fails at that moment.
That's why right libertarianism is the best. If the United States elected an actual right libertarian, a Dave Smith, for instance, and he was like, I'm going to leave you alone and do your thing, then the hippies could have their commune. The left libertarians, I think it was Ron Paul who said it, it's like, in America, you can create your own commune. No one's stopping you. It's that these people want your stuff. That's what they're actually doing.
They want you to uphold them when their system fails.
I think there's more than one successful communes. They have about 100 people, and they don't allow it to go larger than that. So you can apply to join. And then as soon as someone leaves, next in line gets admitted into the commune. Everybody has jobs, and you all live, and everything's shared. But there are people who own it and run it. So there's still authority.
Who was it that was saying that all the most successful communes have been Christian or religious based? Is that true?
I think yesterday someone.
Yeah, somebody was mentioning yesterday.
Yeah, was that Sean?
Throughout history, yeah. Then you also have things like the Gnostics, but they kind of died in the desert. That
didn't work so well.
If everybody believes in the same ideology, then your commune works.
Yeah, because you have a shared sense of belief. You can't have communism and multiculturalism.
Right.
You can't have communism and it's fundamentally incompatible with basically all of human.
Well, actually, I mean, honestly, I think that a functioning country probably needs some kind of religion.
Yes.
How deep do you want to go into the definition of a religion?
Yeah, money is.
It needs a shared ideology.
Yeah, it needs a shared. So if a religion is not so much a belief in like a supernatural God, but rather a hierarchy of values, again,
moral framework.
A moral framework. So my religion is what I call a religion is the hierarchy of values. Whatever's at the top of that is my God. So if I am calling myself an atheist, I'm also calling myself God. Because it is my mind that determines everything that is real. It's my mind that determines what's right and wrong. If I don't use something outside of me to inform me on what is right and wrong, I am saying my mind is the ultimate authority on right and wrong, at least within my existence. And I don't think that's a completely unrespectable position. You just need to be humble and honest and realize that's what it is. And so, yeah, a religion is a hierarchy of values. And if a culture doesn't have a unified hierarchy of values, how would it work together?
Right. Multi-ideologyism doesn't work.
I like that word. Salad, though.
Multi-ideologyism.
That is a word. Yeah, I like it.
So in the U.S., having a bunch of different ideologies doesn't work.
No.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know. What does it mean to work? I mean, it provides opportunity to debate things. That's for sure.
True.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't work in the sense that without social cohesion, it balkanizes.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
And then everyone fights each other.
In a way, the U.S. dollar, I think, is modern religion.
I mean, bro, look at the child drag shows. Ugh. Like, come on. Like, there is a hard line for a lot of regular people, but the left supports the child stripping. 100%. They defend it every turn, probably on tribal grounds, because they don't actually care. Because they have no more, like, this is the funniest thing. I think a lot of conservatives need to realize. Not just conservatives, but like, I don't know what you call that leftist group, okay? Because I'm fairly revolutionary in a lot of respects. Like, I want to change. I think the country needs to change a whole lot. I'm all like, Federal Reserve, get it out of there. Yeah. Conservatives who are like, stop, we're going to keep things the same. I'm like, no, let's change it all. But I think I draw the line with the kids stripping for money at the very least. And what a lot of people who are in the culture war right don't understand is these people don't share your values at all. There's a video of a 4-year-old twerking, and they're all laughing and clapping and cheering as that happens.
Yeah, there are people in this country that value stripping you of your right to own a firearm as a good thing. They don't think of it as a means to an end. They think of it as a good thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't have a gun, period.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like they view you as subhuman. If it's a human right to own a firearm and they say you don't have the right, they're viewing you as subhuman.
The only reason, so I'll put it this way, with the child stripping, why aren't people like running, like why aren't there armed men shutting down child stripping and grooming shows? Why aren't people in New York going up and being like, stop what you're doing to this 4-year-old child right now, put that camera away and stop this twerking? In New York, they overwhelmingly have the same moral framework. They like it. They celebrate it. And the people who don't are probably leaving. Like, could you imagine somebody who is, probably like, take somebody who's, probably opposed to the rioting and Black Lives Matter, someone who's pro two-way, but would choose to live in Minneapolis? Like, they'd have to be a psychopath, right?
Thanks.
Right.
Well, I did read a book once that confirmed it, so I guess I'm a psychopath now. Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Grossman. Yeah, you're a hero.
I'm only half kidding. I mean, people are leaving.
People are leaving the city.
I don't want to live in this place.
Right.
I can't imagine this, as we move down this path to where you get prominent progressive channels with millions of followers praising and defending child stripping. I'm like, that's not going to last. Because when you have, like, with the James Younger case in Texas, where a dad says my son is my son and the mom says my son is actually my daughter and is trans, at a certain point, a parent is going to be like, do not touch my child.
Yeah.
And then what?
I mean, it'll change when parents actually value their children. Like we talk about in the public school system.
Right.
This is I've used this example a couple times before, but it's my classic frustration is you have a middle class dad, a father, and he has a kid who's in public school, and that father, every time you see him, all you're going to hear him do is rail against the public school system while he works his 9 to 5 and his kid goes to the public school system. And so for 18 years, you just hear the same thing. Public school system, blah, 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 blah. Then Susie turns 18, and Dad takes $140,000 that he has saved up and sends Susie to college where he continues to complain, and she ends up a communist and hates him.
Yeah.
What? Like, you failed as a father.
I saw, I think it was a Reddit post where a guy was like, my daughter came back, for a break, for like spring break or something. And when she left, she was a normal, high school kid, graduated. Now her head's shaven. She's wearing weird makeup and she tells me she hates me and I'm evil. It's like, yeah, well, pay attention. I'll tell you this, man, this idea that parents had where it's like, I can ignore what my child's life is like, what they're being taught and what they're being indoctrinated with. I can ignore the raising of my child and they'll be okay. Psychotic.
Yes, people care more about their pet's life than their child. Their child has become a pet that they put up with and they feed it and then whatever. But like, I think that's very serious. I have to say this with absolute seriousness. Raising a family is your most important responsibility as a parent. I guess I have to say this, not having kids yet of my own, but is to pass your values onto your children so that they will be, because if they're your values, you believe in them, right? So
maybe they want their kids to be commies who hate them.
No, I mean it's the same thing. Like, if let's just say I have insert any value. If I believe that the Second Amendment is a moral value, I don't think that people owning firearms is a utility against against a foreign government or against corruption in our government. I don't believe it is a utility argument, although it could have one. I think that owning a firearms ownership on the citizen level is fundamentally a moral problem. It is moral that people say, this is my country. I have investiture in it. It is my land. I am a part of it. I am part of this country. Therefore, I take personal responsibility within my community to be able to do that. So if I think that's a value, and then I have a kid and say, believe whatever you want, man. I don't want to push my beliefs on you. You don't believe those things. They're just a fashion statement to you.
You kind of just passed that belief on to me, because if we were in a tribe 7,000 years ago and there were wild animals trying to attack and kill the tribe, if you didn't pick up a spear and attack and defend, you were acting immorally. It is your moral duty as a human to produce a weapon and defend your tribe.
That's kind of why we're seeing what we're seeing, I suppose. But it's the government's monopoly on violence that I think is keeping everything in check. Because I'll tell you this, man, there's probably a lot of people who are more traditionalist and not even necessarily far right or even that particularly that conservative, who are looking at what's going on with the abuse of children in this country, particularly in cities, and their eyes are probably twitching and veins are throbbing. And it's scary stuff. I mean, how can this country survive? I see this poll about the Balkanization, 37.2% want to break apart. And I say, I get it. I watched that video of that kid stripping for money at a club with men throwing money at him. And I totally understand why people say, get New York and LA out of my country. Because what else do you do about it?
Stop
I don't know, man.
Legislating federally. I don't know. More local law.
That's a culture issue. You're talking about is a culture. No city council came together and said we're going to make a child strip in front of other people. That was a cultural decision, and those people do not have your culture, and their culture is in opposition of yours. It's incompatible, right?
Yep.
You run in the I'm going to use this as sarcastically as possible. This great idea that all roads lead to Rome, that all religions are just the same, is ridiculous because all of them describe evil in completely different ways.
I think it's funny. There's like this weird meme where people keep calling me an atheist, and I don't know where that came from.
What?
Well, you're agnostic, right?
You're atheist.
No, I'm not. I believe in God.
Okay.
He's atheist.
I'm kind of agnostic.
Oh yeah, I am No, I'm not. I'm not theistic in the sense that it
yeah.
follows scripture or anything like that. But I believe in God.
How do you fall in this realm?
Oh, for like religious?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd call it, I'm a Reformed Christian.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So Reformed is somewhat follows from the tradition of Calvin. And there's you can go multiple different ways, but think of it as like within the Christian, within what people refer to as Christianity, there are certain things that are sort of necessary doctrine. So when you talk about praxi, that comes from a religious concept of doxy, doctrine, versus practice. So orthodoxy, what is the accepted belief, and orthopraxy, what is the accepted practice? So for me, one of the things is in the tension between human free will and the sovereignty of God, right? So if God knows all things, is all powerful, and is outside of time, do we really have free will? I think that free will is something, I live as though I have free will, but according to doctrine, I think that the sovereignty of God is much more important. I think it's much more closer to being true. So that means.
Did you see that lightning strike, bro?
Yeah, I heard about it.
The George Floyd mural getting struck by lightning, blowing out the brick wall. I checked the weather on that day, and it was sunny with scattered clouds. In the photos, the ground was mostly dry, which is to insinuate it rained very briefly, just enough for a lightning strike on the George Floyd mural. That's freaky stuff. Yeah, a lot of people were saying it was a sign. God has spoken. There's memes of a hand coming out of clouds with a gun. And I'm like, look, sometimes lightning strikes buildings. It happens actually all the time. And this one happened to have a George Floyd mural on it.
The agnosticism in me really shows, as one person told me, hey, one lightning strike doesn't prove anything. And I thought, well, it doesn't disprove it either.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, what's the chance that the lightning would strike a building and blow out the
people
George?
We're focusing on a lot? Not if the human mind is a bunch of electrical magnetic.
I've seen some stuff, man. Like, I'll tell you, if there was one thing that really like snapped something in my head, it was watching that kid strip on stage and the left cheering for it and clapping, and seeing that 4-year-old little girl twerking and they're cheering for it. And I'm like, dude, I am like left lib hippie on a farm, live and let live, be happy. And they're doing these things to kids. Like, there is evil in this world, man. Then that lightning strike, with everything I've seen, I'm like, man,
Go ahead.
Oh, can you
makes
finish?
You wonder.
Can you finish how you were about to say something about the dichotomy between orthodoxy and ortho?
Oh, not the
praxy.
dichotomy between orthodoxy and praxy, but the tension between human free will and the sovereignty of God. So the question is, are humans actually, do we have free will? And like, we think so, like we generally think so, but from like a theological doctrine, these two concepts exist in tension. And so what I would say is I believe that God is sovereign, as in like everything from gravity is the continual action of God. We are living through God's continual process of creation. And so in some ways it's determined, but we're not capable of seeing that. And the measurement or the mechanism of its being determined is bigger than our capacity to observe.
Gravity?
All of reality. Because in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, right? So if God created, then I don't think that he created the earth and just said, okay, cool, let's see how this experiment plan plays out. I think that the act that we're seeing, the world that we're seeing right now, is he's continuously upholding the world as it is. So the professor of mine that I studied under said, salt dissolves in water every time, the same time, because God is consistent, and he by his will has salt dissolve in water every time. Exactly the same way. What we call laws of nature are just his continual action. So that's on a metaphysics level. And then from like historical and what I believe evil is, so the problem of evil, how can a all-perfect God, all-knowing God, or all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good God create a world where there's evil? This is not a very intelligent question. People usually use it as a stumping question. It's not a very intelligent question because people have been answering it for 2,000 years. If you're just coming to that now and you don't read a book, you're not asking the question honestly. I'm just going to jump to the table. It's a difficult question, and multiple theologians have answered it over the time. But the one that I fall under is that evil is the absence of God. So sin entered the world as humankind sinned against God, and they became less than they were intended to. So it's the absence of God. If God is the source of life, he's the source of all these other things. So that's kind of and that's on what is evil, what is good. Good, God writes the laws of morality in the same way that he writes the laws of science. They're absolute. We just think of laws in human creations where I can break a human law and get away with it, but you can't break the law of God and get away with it.
So do you think that like that lightning strike is God coming back to the scene in some way or something?
No, I don't.
You think just sometimes lightning strikes?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's very dangerous to pretend that a human, can interpret something as the will of God when he gave us scripture. And now, and we have, and that's hard enough for me to comprehend. I do believe that God acts in our world. I'm just very, very, very skeptical when I see something happen. So that, because I don't want to get caught up in this storm of, like, for lack of better words, I don't think it's respectful, even in a theological sense, to interpret everything as if it's like, oh, God is speaking to me. I think that's a little dangerous.
Have you taken psychedelics?
No.
But to be consistent, if the act of salt dissolving in water is the process of God using like his power to make it happen, like continuing a scientific process, then how would it not be consistent to say that something like a lightning strike could be interpreted as God moving and acting? Let me rephrase myself then. Yes, you're correct in that. I will cede that point. Yes, it is God chose that to happen at that point, at that time, in that place. Right.
However, I don't necessarily. I think I need to be humble in recognizing, is that event happening, the significance of it is so that I will think something or I will see it. Is it a sign is the question I'm saying. And I'm very, very cautious about seeing things as signs, because those are things that you have to take very seriously. For example, if I say God spoke to me and told me to do something or whatever, and I don't do it, I am either lying or that is an absolute sin, because I have irrefutable evidence within the construct of my mind that he came to me and said, drink that soda, and I don't drink that soda. I'm just basically saying, well, you are not God anymore. I don't care. And it's a huge issue there.
But then on the flip side, if you say that God told me to do something and he did not, you are lying. In my mind, that is the form, that is literally speaking for God. That is taking God's name in vain.
Yeah. Very much so. And so it's one of those things where, like, when you address these issues from a very serious level, if you take your faith seriously, you will not be flippant with lucid interpretations as if they're signs specifically from God telling you to do something, because you will take interpretation very, very, very seriously, and that's where I see the big difference in.
I used to take signs too seriously. It was driving me slowly insane. Like, I would see two birds flying, and I'd be like, that means that I will find love. And it was like, you're going nuts, Crossland. Take a step back.
Yeah. He's become self-aware, everyone.
Maybe there is a grand, arcing, coercive plan, but I don't know.
And I think it falls in the same line of conspiracy theory in the sense of it produces some of the same effects. It's just a religious version of it. Because, like, when you're seeing everything as the conspiracy of the Illuminati, you go crazy. Because you lose your ability to accurately perceive to your own ability the actual world, because everything has to be seen through the lines of the conspiracy.
Do you think God functions with intention?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a person.
How would you define intention?
I think we understand intention because we understand that God has a will. I think I wouldn't say I understand my intention and I'm going to ascribe that to God. I think that you and I, we have an intention because I have both desires, and when I pick up this magazine, I'm picking it up to do something. When I'm writing, if my writing is not an act of intention, if I'm not creating out of intent, am I creating? No. And so the act of creation itself is a sign of intent.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.